Chapter 23. The Civil Authorities. 1. God, the Supreme Lord and King of all the world, has ordained civil authorities to be, under him, over the people for his own glory and the public good. For this purpose he has armed them with the power of the sword for the defense and encouragement of those who are good, and for the punishment of those who do evil.
Romans 13. Be subject to government. Every person is to be in subjection to the governing authorities. For there is no authority except from God, and those which exist have been appointed by God. Therefore whoever resists that authority has opposed the ordinance of God, and they who have opposed will receive condemnation upon themselves. For rulers are not a cause of fear for good behavior, but for evil. Do you want to have no fear of that authority? Do what is good, and you will have praise from the same. For it is a minister of God to you for good. But if you do what is evil, be afraid, for it does not bear the sword in vain, for it is a minister of God, an avenger who brings wrath on the one who practices evil.
1 Peter, chapter 2, verse 13 to 14. Be subject to authority. Be subject for the sake of the Lord to every human institution, whether to a king as the one in authority, or to governors as sent by him for the punishment of evildoers and the praise of those who do good.
2. It is lawful for Christians to hold public office when called to it. In such office they ought especially to maintain piety, justice, and peace, according to the wholesome laws of each commonwealth. For that purpose they may now, under the New Testament, lawfully wage war upon just and necessary occasion.
Genesis, chapter 41, verse 39 to 43. So Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Since God has made you know all of this, there is no one so understanding and wise as you are. You shall be over my house, and according to your command all my people shall do homage, only in the throne I will be greater than you." And Pharaoh said to Joseph, "See, I have set you over all the land of Egypt." Then Pharaoh removed his signet ring from his hand and put it on Joseph's hand and clothed him in garments of fine linen and put the gold necklace around his neck. And he had him ride in his second chariot, and they called out before him, "Bow the knee." And he set him over all the land of Egypt.
Nehemiah, chapter 12, verse 26. These served in the days of Joachim the son of Jeshua, the son of Jozadak, and in the days of Nehemiah the governor and of Ezra the priest and scribe.
Nehemiah, chapter 13, verse 15 to 31. Keep the Sabbath day holy. In those days I saw in Judah some who were treading winepresses on the Sabbath, and bringing in sacks of grain and loading them on donkeys, as well as wine, grapes, figs and all kinds of loads, and they brought them into Jerusalem on the Sabbath day. So I testified against them on the day they sold food. Also men of Tyre were living there who brought in fish and all kinds of merchandise, and sold them to the sons of Judah on the Sabbath, even in Jerusalem. Then I contended with the nobles of Judah and said to them, "What is this evil thing you are doing, even profaning the Sabbath day? Did not your fathers do the same, so our God brought on us and on this city all this calamity? Yet you are adding to his anger on Israel by profaning the Sabbath." Now it happened that just as it grew dark at the gates of Jerusalem before the Sabbath, I said the word, and the doors were shut. Then I said that they should not open them until after the Sabbath. Then I had some of my young men stand at the gates so that no load would enter on the Sabbath day. Once or twice the traders and merchants of every kind of merchandise spent the night outside Jerusalem. Then I warned them and said to them, "Why do you spend the night in front of the wall? If you do so again, I will send forth my hand against you." From that time on they did not come on the Sabbath. And I said to the Levites that they should cleanse themselves and come as gatekeepers to keep the Sabbath day holy. For this also remember me, O my God, and have compassion on me according to the greatness of your loving kindness. You shall not marry foreigners. In those days I also saw that the Jews had married women from Ashdod, Ammon, and Moab. As for their children, half spoke in the language of Ashdod, and none of them was able to speak the language of Judah, but only the tongue of his own people. So I contended with them and cursed them and struck some of them and pulled out their hair and made them swear by God, "You shall not give your daughters to their sons, nor take up their daughters for your sons or for yourselves." Did not Solomon king of Israel sin regarding these things? Yet among the many nations there was no king like him, and he was loved by his God, and God gave him to be king over all Israel. Nevertheless the foreign women caused even him to sin. Do we then hear about you that you have done all this great evil by acting unfaithfully against our God by marrying foreign women? And even one of the sons of Joiada, the son of Eliashib the high priest, was a son-in-law of Sanballat the Horonite, so I made him flee away from me. Remember them, O my God, because they have defiled the priesthood and the covenant of the priesthood and the Levites. Thus I cleansed them from everything foreign and ensured that the responsibilities stood for the priests and the Levites, each in his work. And I arranged for the supply of wood at fixed times and for the first fruits. Remember me, O my God, for good.
Daniel, chapter 2, verse 48 to 49. Then the king promoted Daniel and gave him many great gifts, and he made him rule with power over the whole province of Babylon and chief prefect over all the wise men of Babylon. And Daniel sought of the king, and he appointed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego over the administration of the province of Babylon, while Daniel was at the king's court.
Proverbs, chapter 8, verse 15 to 16. By me kings reign, and rulers mark out righteousness. By me princes rule, and nobles, all who judge rightly.
Romans 13. Be subject to government. Every person is to be in subjection to the governing authorities. For there is no authority except from God, and those which exist have been appointed by God. Therefore whoever resists that authority has opposed the ordinance of God, and they who have opposed will receive condemnation upon themselves. For rulers are not a cause of fear for good behavior, but for evil. Do you want to have no fear of that authority? Do what is good, and you will have praise from the same. For it is a minister of God to you for good. But if you do what is evil, be afraid, for it does not bear the sword in vain, for it is a minister of God, an avenger who brings wrath on the one who practices evil.
Psalms, chapter 2, verse 10 to 12. So now, O kings, show insight. Take warning, O judges of the earth. Serve Yahweh with fear. And rejoice with trembling. Kiss the Son, lest he become angry, and you perish in the way. For his wrath may soon be kindled. How blessed are all who take refuge in him. 1 Timothy, chapter 2, verse 2. For kings and all who are in authority, so that we may lead a tranquil and quiet life in all godliness and dignity. Psalms, chapter 82, verse 3 to 4. Give justice to the poor and the orphan. Justify the afflicted and destitute. Protect the poor and needy. Deliver them out of the hand of the wicked.
2 Samuel, chapter 23, verse 3. The God of Israel said, The Rock of Israel spoke to me. He who rules over men as a righteous one. Who rules in the fear of God.
1 Peter, chapter 2, verse 13. Be subject to authority. Be subject for the sake of the Lord to every human institution, whether to a king as the one in authority.
Luke, chapter 3, verse 14. And soldiers were also questioning him, saying, What should we also do? And he said to them, Do not take money from anyone by force, or extort anyone, and be content with your wages.
Romans, chapter 13, verse 4. For it is a minister of God to you for good. But if you do what is evil, be afraid, for it does not bear the sword in vain, for it is a minister of God, an avenger who brings wrath on the one who practices evil.
Matthew, chapter 8, verse 9 to 10. For I also am a man under authority, with soldiers under me, and I say to this man, Go, and he goes, and to another, Come, and he comes, and to my slave, Do this, and he does it. Now when Jesus heard this, he marveled and said to those who were following, Truly I say to you, I have not found such great faith with anyone in Israel.
Acts 10. Cornelius and Peter's visions. Now there was a man at Caesarea named Cornelius, a centurion of what was called the Italian cohort. A devout man and one who feared God with all his household, and gave many alms to the people and prayed to God continually.
3. Civil authorities may not assume to themselves the administration of the word and sacraments, or the power of the keys of the kingdom of heaven, nor should they interfere in any way in matters of faith. Yet, as caring fathers, it is the duty of civil authorities to protect the Church of our common Lord without giving preference to any denomination of Christians above the rest, doing so in such a way that all church authorities shall enjoy the full, free, and unquestioned liberty of carrying out every part of their sacred functions without violence or danger. As Jesus Christ has appointed a regular government and discipline in His Church, no law of any commonwealth should interfere with, prevent, or hinder their proper exercise among the voluntary members of any denomination of Christians, according to their own profession and belief. It is the duty of civil authorities to protect the person and good name of all their people in such an effective manner that no person be allowed, either in the name of religion or of unbelief, to offer any indignity, violence, abuse, or injury to any other person whatever. They should also take care that all religious and ecclesiastical assemblies be held without interference or disturbance.
2 Chronicles, chapter 26, verse 18. And they stood against Uzziah the king and said to him, It is not for you, Uzziah, to burn incense to Yahweh, but for the priests, the sons of Aaron who are set apart as holy to burn incense. Get out of the sanctuary, for you have been unfaithful and will have no honor from Yahweh God. Matthew, chapter 18, verse 17. And if he refuses to listen to them, tell it to the church, and if he refuses to listen even to the church, let him be to you as the Gentile and the tax collector.
Matthew, chapter 16, verse 19. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth shall have been bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth shall have been loosed in heaven.
1 Corinthians, chapter 12, verse 28 to 29. And God has appointed in the church, first apostles, second prophets, third teachers, then miracles, then gifts of healings, helps, administrations, various kinds of tongues. Are all apostles? Are all prophets? Are all teachers? Are all workers of miracles? Ephesians, chapter 4, verse 11 to 12. And he himself gave some as apostles, and some as prophets, and some as evangelists, and some as pastors and teachers, for the equipping of the saints for the work of service, to the building up of the body of Christ. 1 Corinthians 4. Servants of Christ. Let a man consider us in this manner, as servants of Christ and stewards of the mysteries of God. In this case, moreover, it is required of stewards that one be found faithful.
Romans, chapter 10, verse 15. And how will they preach unless they are sent? Just as it is written, how beautiful are the feet of those who proclaim good news of good things.
Hebrews, chapter 5, verse 4. And no one takes this honor to himself, but receives it when he is called by God, even as Aaron was.
John, chapter 18, verse 36. Jesus answered, My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, then my servants would be fighting so that I would not be delivered over to the Jews, but as it is, my kingdom is not from here.
Acts, chapter 5, verse 29. But Peter and the apostles answered and said, We must obey God rather than men.
Ephesians, chapter 4, verse 11 to 12. And he himself gave some as apostles, and some as prophets, and some as evangelists, and some as pastors and teachers, for the equipping of the saints for the work of service, to the building up of the body of Christ.
Isaiah, chapter 49, verse 23. Kings will be your guardians, and their princesses your nurses. They will bow down to you with their faces to the earth, and lick the dust of your feet. And you will know that I am Yahweh. Those who hope in me will not be put to shame.
Romans 13. Be subject to government. Every person is to be in subjection to the governing authorities. For there is no authority except from God, and those which exist have been appointed by God. Therefore whoever resists that authority has opposed the ordinance of God, and they who have opposed will receive condemnation upon themselves. For rulers are not a cause of fear for good behavior, but for evil. Do you want to have no fear of that authority? Do what is good, and you will have praise from the same. For it is a minister of God to you for good. But if you do what is evil, be afraid, for it does not bear the sword in vain, for it is a minister of God, an avenger who brings wrath on the one who practices evil. Therefore it is necessary to be in subjection, not only because of that wrath, but also because of conscience. For because of this you also pay taxes, for rulers are servants of God, devoting themselves to this very thing.
Psalms, chapter 105, verse 15. Do not touch my anointed ones. And to my prophets do no evil.
Romans, chapter 13, verse 4. For it is a minister of God to you for good. But if you do what is evil, be afraid, for it does not bear the sword in vain, for it is a minister of God, an avenger who brings wrath on the one who practices evil.
1 Timothy, chapter 2, verse 2. For kings and all who are in authority, so that we may lead a tranquil and quiet life in all godliness and dignity.
For it is the duty of people to pray for those in authority, to honor them, to pay them taxes or other revenue, to obey their lawful commands, and to be subject to their authority for the sake of conscience. Neither unbelief nor difference in religion makes void the just and legal authority of office holders, nor frees the people, church authorities included, from their due obedience to them. Much less does the Pope have any power or jurisdiction over civil authorities in their domains, or over any of their people, nor can he deprive them of their domains or lives if he shall judge them to be heretics, or on any other pretense whatever.
1 Timothy 2. Exhortation to prayer. First of all, then, I exhort that petitions and prayers, requests, and thanksgivings, be made for all men. For kings and all who are in authority, so that we may lead a tranquil and quiet life in all godliness and dignity. This is good and acceptable in the sight of God our Savior. 1 Peter, chapter 2, verse 17. Honor all people, love the brethren, fear God, honor the king.
Matthew, chapter 22, verse 21. They said to him, Caesar's. Then he said to them, Therefore, render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's.
Romans, chapter 13, verse 6-7. For because of this you also pay taxes, for rulers are servants of God, devoting themselves to this very thing. Render to all what is due them, tax to whom tax is due, custom to whom custom, fear to whom fear, honor to whom honor. Romans, chapter 13, verse 5. Therefore it is necessary to be in subjection, not only because of that wrath, but also because of conscience.
Titus 3. Be ready for every good work. Remind them to be subject to rulers, to authorities, to be obedient, to be ready for every good work.
1 Peter, chapter 2, verse 13-16. Be subject to authority. Be subject for the sake of the Lord to every human institution, whether to a king as the one in authority, or to governors as sent by him for the punishment of evildoers and the praise of those who do good. For such is the will of God that by doing good you may silence the ignorance of foolish men. Act as free people, and do not use your freedom as a covering for evil, but use it as slaves of God.
Romans 13. Be subject to government. Every person is to be in subjection to the governing authorities. For there is no authority except from God, and those which exist have been appointed by God.
Acts, chapter 25, verse 9-11. But Festus, wishing to do the Jews a favor, answered Paul and said, Are you willing to go up to Jerusalem and to be tried before me on these matters? But Paul said, I am standing before Caesar's judgment seat, where I ought to be tried. I have done no wrong to the Jews, as you also very well know. If, then, I am a wrongdoer and have committed anything worthy of death, I do not refuse to die, but if none of those things is true of which these men accuse me, no one can hand me over to them. I appeal to Caesar.
2 Peter 2. The rise of false prophets. But false prophets also arose among the people, just as there will also be false teachers among you, who will secretly introduce destructive heresies, even denying the master who bought them, bringing swift destruction upon themselves. 2 Peter, chapter 2, verse 10-11. And especially those who go after the flesh in its corrupt lust and despise authority. Daring, self-willed, they do not tremble when they blaspheme glorious ones. Whereas angels who are greater in strength and power do not bring a reviling judgment against them before the Lord.
Jude, chapter 1, verse 8-11. Yet in the same way these men, also by dreaming, defile the flesh, and reject authority, and blaspheme glorious ones. But Michael the archangel, when he, disputing with the devil, was arguing about the body of Moses, did not dare pronounce against him a blasphemous judgment, but said, The Lord rebuke you. But these men blaspheme the things which they do not understand, and the things which they know by instinct, like unreasoning animals, by these things they are destroyed. Woe to them! For they have gone the way of Cain, and for pay they have poured themselves into the error of Balaam, and perished in the rebellion of Korah.
Mark, chapter 10, verse 42-44. And calling them to himself, Jesus said to them, You know that those who are recognized as rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great men exercise authority over them. But it is not this way among you, but whoever wishes to become great among you shall be your servant. And whoever wishes to be first among you shall be slave of all.
Matthew, chapter 23, verse 8-12. But do not be called Rabbi, for one is your teacher, and you are all brothers. And do not call anyone on earth your father, for one is your Father, he who is in heaven. Do not be called instructors, for one is your instructor, that is, Christ. But the greatest among you shall be your servant. And whoever exalts himself shall be humbled, and whoever humbles himself shall be exalted.
2 Timothy, chapter 2, verse 24. And the Lord's slave must not be quarrelsome, but be kind to all, able to teach, patient when wronged.
1 Peter, chapter 5, verse 3. Nor yet as lording it over those allotted to you, but being examples to the flock.
Still remain. Though this journey is forever, memories ease the pain.